You guys, what's up? What's up? What's popping? What's popping? What's popping? What's popping? What's popping, man? We are back in here again. Here, it's been a while. We're back here for this Stay Black series, and I wanted just to sort of branch out the topics. I know that we try and talk about topics pertaining to Black people, racial issues, and so forth. But I wanted just to give a much broader thing because I think it'll be interesting to really look at current topics and current topics that may have a different set of debates. So I think the main topic I wanted to talk about is obviously this whole LeBron thing, answering back at Ibrahimovic. And I think what made it interesting was just hearing other people's points of view with regards to LeBron. And just for us to really talk about and discuss whether is LeBron an athlete? Is he a is he like a non-athlete? As I say, what is LeBron specifically? Like how do we view him? So sorry, is he an activist? Or is he a hypocrite? Which is what the question was pertaining to the whole China issue. And let's talk about Mr. Potato Head. Let's talk about Mr. Potato Head. Talk about specific groups, pressure groups, wanting to push forth a certain agenda, and whether these are the right tactics to use to push forth that agenda, man. So we have a team here, Zumon here and HH, got Hitman here, Tony, MB, and maybe we might be able to join some others. And anybody who wants to join in and so forth and feels they have something to say on this topic, feel free to let me know and I will share that link with you, man. So I think we can now give this a start. LeBron James. So let me just give you a bit of a background to this. So before I kick this off to my peeps. So Zlatan says sports stars shouldn't get involved in politics because it just doesn't look good. Because he feels that you should be educated in this arena. And says that, he is a fan of LeBron James, but because he doesn't feel like if LeBron James is educated in that arena, he shouldn't go ahead and talk about certain politics. So LeBron fired back, said, nope, I know what I'm talking about. I fight for what's right. I fight for just causes and so forth. And yeah, I feel that I have the right to pretty much speak my mind about things that I feel that I'm well versed in. So, and that's so I think you can definitely defend LeBron there. But where things get a bit murky, which is where the debate comes through, is how does LeBron see himself? If LeBron sees himself as somebody who is looking after his community and his people, there's nothing to discuss. But where things get a bit dicey is when we now have it in the case of LeBron views himself as an activist that goes out to do things that are just invites for those people who may be, who people may be against and so forth. That's where things get a little bit more murky because people bring up the China issue where he could have stood up for people of Hong Kong, but because those in China are linked in with the NBA, they're going to harm his pockets. He didn't say anything. And he even said to the Daryl dude that, yo, bro, you shouldn't talk about this stuff because it could harm his pockets. So it's picking and choosing. So I think the only issue lies is if LeBron sees himself as an activist, because I don't see him as an activist. And anybody that views him as an activist, you're wrong because the evidence doesn't really support the fact that he's an activist who is going out fighting for this just causes, man. So let's just start there. So, Hitman, for you, with LeBron, what do you view him as? Do you view him as an activist, a sports star? What is your view with LeBron specifically to when he gets involved in political affairs?
So the thing with athletes, with athletes going and talking about politics, that's going on for a long time. I don't like all these people who complain about athletes doing politics. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me, like them complaining all the time. We've had athletes talk about politics in their situations since the days of literally since the days of the Romans. So I don't really see a point in. People aren't going to like what a person has to say, especially the big thing with someone who's in sports talking about politics. with them being not being that being their forte, or being that, or them being considered not that educated because their skill is not intellectual or political. It's just, I mean,
No, no, I
it's
mean,
their
but the thing though, if you're not educated on a matter, should you speak on that matter if you don't have the required information? Because then you now look like a fool. Now, no one is saying that you
who's
shouldn't
this?
talk about it, but if let's say you're not researched in something and you're a popular figure and you now say something political, but you don't really understand the nuances.
Yo, H,
Okay, so there's
look at what AJ said
there's
though.
a
Hold
bit,
on.
okay, so jumping in there, there's a bit of nuance to that. So like, one of the nuance to that is, what if you don't know if, I mean, how do you know if that person's not that educated on that topic? I mean, because in a lot of cases, even if I mean, they may give a perspective that a lot of people aren't hearing. Another thing too is that those athletes who are acting as activists, they're springboards for people that they're probably springboards for people that they agree with, or that they know, or family members that they care about, or friends that they care about, that are having political issues, in the way to basically to show solidarity and support for those people.
All right, MB, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, like AJ's comment is right. Like, not everybody needs to be an activist, but Hitman's right too. I think people have an obligation to use their platform. But here's the thing: you can say, "Hey, everybody, look at this well-written article by Black scholar number one from prestigious college A, and read that shit to educate yourself." Instead of like, I watched LeBron's interview, and listening to that man speak, just it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. He's the exact opposite of eloquent. He goes in there and he just, I don't know. It just
So you're saying this in reference to LeBron?
Yeah, but I mean, because he's not wrong, but he sounds like a fucking idiot conveying his thoughts. So somebody who's actually who's ready with a clapback about everything, like he'll look like he's getting taken apart just because he's not an eloquent speaker. It's the same reason why like Ben Shapiro doesn't know what he's talking about half the fucking time, but he's a professional debater. So it's a situation where it's crap, but if you polish it, it sounds good and people will agree just because it sounds intelligent.
So in your view, would you want, if you were advising LeBron, would you advise him to speak up and so forth, or would you say, "Nah, bro,
No,
just
I would tell him to gather the information he needs and pass it to and pass that information to the people. There's no need for him necessarily to try to speak on it as if he's an authority. If you don't know what you're talking about, don't open your mouth. Just pass get the information from people who do. There's nothing wrong with tapping out and saying, "Hey, I don't know, but this guy does." Because then people don't focus on him. There's only the issue. You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of people will disagree just because he's him.
all right." Tony, talk to me.
So I think in general, from a historical standpoint, musicians and athletes have always been in a position or in the limelight because they've been able to sort of garner all different types of races attention in general about any particular subject. Just because that's the sort of celebrity political clout or celebrity clout that they carry, which somewhat goes over into the political realm, sort of like a Jackie Robinson, that kind of thing. I think that as for LeBron specifically, I think that he is not necessarily an authority over all things political, but if he were speaking more to Black issues, I would not necessarily have an issue. And I'm not as familiar with his exact words or what actually transpired with China in per se, like him coming to their defense. But if he were to speak out from a political activist viewpoint, I would assume that he would be more aptitude to do so.
So let me give you clarification on that. So basically, the NBA, obviously, they do a lot of stuff with China, and China basically brings in a lot of business into the NBA and so forth. So obviously, you know that there's been a lot of this an uprising in Hong Kong. Because Hong Kong feel like if China are infringing upon their freedom, so there's been a massive protest in Hong Kong. And I think it was the Houston Rockets GM put out a tweet saying, "I stand with Hong Kong." And the NBA chief said, "Bro, put that stuff down because we cannot be politically involved in something that does not involve us, specifically where we do business with China." And LeBron then said that, "Hey, this Rockets GM, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like he shouldn't basically be involving himself in stuff that isn't political." And guys now say, "Hey, LeBron, I thought you're supposed to be an activist. If you're standing up for what's right, why don't you stand up for what's..." Because first of all, I'll tell you my response to that, but the whole issue is that people said, "Why aren't you standing up for what is right by standing with those with Hong Kong instead of just looking after your pockets, which is ensuring that you play nice and keep China happy?"
Mm. So just so I get this right, he was saying he was for the guy who was speaking for China, speaking up for the.
No. He was okay. So the Houston Rockets GM was saying, "I stand with Hong Kong." So he was
Okay.
speaking for in support of Hong Kong. LeBron James was saying, "You shouldn't say that because we shouldn't be politically involved because
Oh,
China and the NBA, because China brings in a lot of income into the NBA, and obviously LeBron James benefits from a lot of the income that's the business that they do with China. So he obviously doesn't want to upset China by someone saying, 'Hey, I stand with Hong Kong,' because China don't want anybody sort of gathering place with Hong Kong and so forth." So the idea is people are saying, "Hey, man, why don't you stand with freedom, liberals, and so forth?" LeBron's like, "Hey, I got to look after my pockets," which people felt that, hey, this is a bit hypocritical for a so-called activist.
gotcha. So now with that context, I think that one, this sheds a light on what his true intentionality is anytime he says anything political, right? I think that a lot of like in the past, or like when he would speak out, on behalf of Tamir Rice and things of that nature, I think a lot of it had to do with, popularity at the time when activism is popular. I think in terms of, him being about money, I think that's all billionaires. And I think that that's where us as average citizens really fall for the game that's played. Because I think the more, he unfortunately pretends to be like for Black Power or for any, activism type thing or activist type thing, I think a lot of it does help, with his image. And doing something like this again with China, like it's clear where his motives lie. So I think that we should keep that in mind for future reference, like people have said, with him being hypocritical, because clearly that's what it is. But I think that he's not alone in this at all. And for that reason, I think that we should um, always have a side eye in the future whenever we hear anything from him.
I'm muted. Sorry. So this is to the panel. So from Darren to the panel, should guys like LeBron use their platform to bring on persons who are knowledgeable on the topic? So I'll start first, and then we can then go around. Here's the thing. That is the obvious thing to do, but I don't blame LeBron because when you're in that position, you have a particular personality and that influence. You're almost drunk on your power and your influence. So for LeBron is once he just sees those retweets and say, "Oh my gosh, LeBron is so amazing. He inspired me so much." He's like, "Wait, what do I need to get started? Let me be the speaker." Because everyone wants to be Ali. Everyone wants to be Muhammad Ali. Because ever since Muhammad Ali did what he did, where he's like, "No, I'm not hiring anyone. I have a view, I have a personality, and I'm going to show you that a sports person who is influential can be so much more." So every single person, once they've now been in that position, they want to now follow Ali. Hey man, I want to be like more than just a sports person. And specifically, when that lady said shut up and dribble, that was the last time LeBron would ever think of bringing in someone else knowledgeable to speak. Because once he now does that, that means that lady was right. That, hey, you're a dumb basketball player who only knows how to throw it through a hoop. You go get a dude who actually knows how to speak while you shut up and just focus on your talents. So he should bring in someone more knowledgeable. That is the most responsible thing to do. But I don't think he will, just based off him not wanting to be viewed as a guy that only is good at basketball and you have limitations to what you can do. Hitman, in response to this.
I mean, as far as platforms, I mean, really, it's more of a personal impetus for him. Is that he should get himself read up on? Is that if you're going to push an agenda, you should get yourself read up on it. Talk with the people that you're supporting. Talk with the people that you're representing. Really get read up on it. So make sure that at least you can stay consistent with your message. And if that's what you really, and if at the end of actually doing research on it, if that's what you really feel, just keep with it. But the thing about it though is that because I know that people say refer to all of these people like academics, but I'm going to say that there's a big failing in society, and that's the fact that we're slowly. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum or what you're into, but there's a lot of people that are straying away from academics in general, or only straying to academics that, or quote unquote academics who suit the agenda that they're looking for.
Dr. Umar.
That's one example. I mean, everything from Dr. Umar to people like Candace Owens and
Amanda Seals, people like that and everything.
And Ben Shapiro and stuff like that, because these guys are political commentators. The truth is, I mean, those people aren't going to give you the answers. They're not going to give you they're just going to give you a point of view. They're going to push an agenda. That's all they're for, just to push an agenda.
But my thing on him is that, and this is the issue, that why is it, and maybe I'll come to MB with this, that why is it that, this shows the failing of a society. Why do we give a damn what a sports person says? The idea of that is so idiotic. Again, I don't want to insult LeBron by saying that he sounds stupid and so forth, but MB, you're free to say that. I don't want to just say that. But my thing is, why am I looking to a basketball player or a football player or a singer for real issues? Why is what they say more truthful, or why should it carry much more weight than someone who studies this 24/7? But it just shows the idiocy and the failings of society, that we are so drunk on popularity, we're so drunk on fame, that we look at this famous person or this talented person for everything. Basketball, healthcare, advice, life advice, motivational advice, scientific advice. It's but why do you need him? Why is it? Yes, you need to stand up. You have a responsibility. Because my thing is, this is that sports people shouldn't have a responsibility to change things. Unfortunately, they do. They shouldn't really be obliged to. But especially if you're black, you do. So my thing is that, don't you think this is more so a failing of society and just the idiotic 99% who hang on every word a sports person says? MB? All right, Tony.
So I think in general, as far as it being a social responsibility for sportsmen or any type of celebrity to speak out on behalf of their fans, I don't think that should necessarily be a requirement. I think, that's not something that they get paid to do. And I don't think that it's in most of their hearts. I think that a lot of times they're just out to make a check. And I think in that regard, I think that that's how you, I think that really solidifies this notion that the general public is in a very naive state where they just assume that the rich and the wealthy care even a little bit about them, even if, or especially if that person looks or has a resemblance to them as far as physical characteristics are concerned. I think, are there people out there that genuinely do, want to do good work and all that stuff? Sure, but to the extent that somebody shows and proves that it's money over everything else, I don't think that we should take that harshly. I don't think that we should take it to heart, because I think that it really should redirect us to those that we should be listening to, those who, to the point of the other panelists, like, who are actually, authorities on different subjects as far as a political notion or even an educational one. And I think,
Sorry, real quick. So, do you think that sports people, specifically, let's just say black sports people, should they have a duty to speak on specific issues, or you don't think that they should have that obligation or that duty?
one, I would say this. I don't think that they generally have a responsibility. Again, when they sign on for basketball, they're typically signing on to work for somebody who does not have a similar motivation, right? Like, the idea of hiring LeBron or putting him on their team was not, oh, one day he's going to have a voice and he's going to change the world. That's not what any of these people care about. And I think, to your point, the fact that we even create these ideas that this is possibly, what their purpose is, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. Those who actually spend their life's work doing this, I think that this is, in a way, disrespectful to them. And I think that celebrities or people like LeBron, again, are there for just entertainment. And again, I repeat, I think that a lot of times in the past when he did speak up, not that I think that it was his total position, as far as just, trying to make a quick dollar and, up his image, but that's a part of the game. And I think that a lot of celebrities ultimately are there for a check. And will they put their life on the line like a Martin Luther King Jr.? No, that's not who they are. That's not what they were brought up to be. That's not who, it's not in them. And that's the problem, is that we're trying to create something out of somebody. This is a grown man, and we already know what he cares about. It's just basketball. And we need to see it and treat it as that. Now, until he show and proves that, he's other than that, then okay. But this really should not come as a shocker to any of us. But it shows the naivety of the general public that anybody who's rich could even care. And I think that that's ultimately why we're in the predicament that we're in now, because we have such high faith in those with more money.
MB?
Yeah, I'm back now. I'm sorry, I missed the initial question. I'm so sorry.
Yes. So my thing is that, so do you feel that athletes have like a specific obligation to speak, specifically black athletes, or do you think that no, society needs to be smarter than that? Because this is almost an issue of what should be and what is. What should be is no guy that focus on sports should have an obligation to speak on stuff that they don't live 24/7. But the fact of what it is that we live in a dumb society where people are very influenced by what sports people do. So do you think sports people are obliged to speak on these specific issues, even if they don't live it 24/7?
Well, I think so. Part of me feels like anybody, regardless of color, who has a platform has some obligation to speak to what is going on, because there are people who, I know plenty of people who are like, I don't watch the news, and these dumb fucks are okay with being uninformed. And I'm not talking about just even watching the news. I'm talking about just like they're okay with not knowing current events, or like, people who say, I don't care about that politician, I don't care about this. And I'm like, well, those people who you don't care about vote on things that affect your daily life. So you actually should care about them. So when you have someone like LeBron bringing up something that person might have missed, it might be a good thing. But it's like I said earlier, I don't feel like he should speak like he's an authority on it if he's not the best speaker or doesn't have all of the pertinent facts to it. But I don't think there's any specific obligation for black players to speak on things. I do think, however, that things like things like concussions in the NFL, right? And finding out in the past 2 weeks that the NFL has a completely racist way of handling claims of cognitive uh, deterioration in black players who because they view black players as having less cognitive ability from the start. So they say, well, here's the scale, and based on your race, you were already here, so you didn't have much of a decline, so we're going to deny you benefits and claims, right? Like that. That's something that I want them to speak on, because it shows that even though black players are, what are they, like 75 to 80% of the league for most of these leagues now, they're still treated worse than the minority in the league simply because of their skin. I want stuff like that brought to the front. I don't necessarily think that social issues beyond that, if they're not like a black football player knows about he goes to the doctor. He's dealt with it firsthand about what it is to deal with claims and insurance regarding his issue. Yes, he also is a black man in America. He can speak to that part of it. But like when LeBron talks about like the studies and things like that's where he loses. You know what I mean? He doesn't have that firsthand knowledge. I just feel like people should point to the brother who can take apart a Ben Shapiro. People who argue for a living, who don't know what they're talking about, but are really good at polishing bullshit professionally, peddling that stuff. Like you should pass it on to a brother who can take that kind of dude apart. That's all. I mean, but he's right. Nobody said shit when old boy was talking about racism in Sweden. But as soon as he said something, oh, LeBron, shut up and dribble, right? I mean, he's not wrong, but he also didn't really make that point very, very well. That's all I'm saying.
So I mean, just to round up on this, and maybe I'll come to Hitman with a seat. My thing is, I just want to know where LeBron is coming from, because my thing with the whole China thing is people say, okay, that is hypocritical. So you'll fight for injustices and so forth for black people, but now when it comes with this issue with Hong Kong, you are silent and are worrying about your own money. But my response to that is, when have Hong Kong ever fought for black issues? When have Hong Kong ever stood behind issues to do with racism pertaining to black people? I've never really heard that happen. So I'm not one of those guys of fighting other people's battles when they will not come and fight for you. So I think for LeBron, if he is very much aware that you are not an activist, you don't work for the UN, you are merely a guy who fortunately has been able to put in this position where you can actually be influential and helpful for your community. And if you're doing that, that's great. Because I think the reality is sports people are influential. As much as we don't want them to speak about stuff they don't know about, and we don't want them to sort of get into waters that they don't really know how to swim in, if they say a specific thing or they tweet something out, there is more chance of something happening and moving and that's being influential than if a well-educated person comes in and says it. Because nobody wants to listen to a well-educated person, and perhaps the people whose minds you want to change are probably basketball fans. They're probably LeBron fans, you know. So because they're basketball fans, they're okay, well, you know what, yeah, I'm going to listen to this dude, but why am I listening to this black professor who has all these different degrees and so forth? Even if he's super smart, I'm like, I don't want to listen to him, but hey, here's the basketball guy. Now, sometimes you'll be silent and say, no, I don't want to listen to him, but there's more of a chance of you being heard by that guy that is a fan of you and your sport than the professor. So, I mean, Hitman, on the points of where, do you have any issue with LeBron being like, hey, I'm only going to do for self and for my people? Or do you think that, hey, if you're going to do it for your people, you should try and do it for others as well? Or do you believe in, like, no, fight your own battles, let people fight their own battles?
That's a tough one, because to me,
it's easy, man. How's that tough? It's easy. Why are you fighting other people's battles if they wouldn't fight for you?
I mean, like pretty much it just comes down to what you personally believe in. Because here's the thing: if you're up at that level, even if you're up at the level of being a black athlete, you have no, as a human being, you have no obligation to do a goddamn thing for another goddamn person. That's the easiest way to put it. You have no obligation in this world. People could shun you. People could give you shit. People could say all sorts of stuff. The only person you have to look out for at the end of the day is number one. But then again, I mean, as a black person, there's kind of like that. I just have that, just get that feeling like, what if I need to help somebody, help people, just to help people like you. It's obvious, and it's usually inwards to outwards. So you help yourself, you help your family, you help your friends, and then you help your community. And outwards and outwards and outwards. And in some cases, for some people, that's how they see it as.
So, Ambi, where do you ride with this? Do you feel in this world we're living in, not in a utopia, in the real world, you fight for self and your people, or do you feel that you should be beyond and try and fight the battles of others who may be in need if you have the influence?
Well, I feel like if you don't fight for the weak or other groups, eventually, when that group is conquered, the conqueror looks to you. So I feel like when we help other people who are not, we help other people of color, we do help ourselves. But I'm talking about in this country. Like, people keep bringing up, well, LeBron didn't help people in China. I mean, yeah, but LeBron also helped an entire community of people who look like him. Like, bringing up that he was silent on China doesn't really do anything in my mind, because he's proven that he cares about the little guy. And I respect his decision to just,
No, but you could argue that Hong Kong is the little guy.
No,
China,
not really. Hong Kong is better off than most of mainland China. Just being real, like, most to live there. I mean, I'm not talking about like the slums. I'm talking about like the average person in China does not live like the average person in Hong Kong. They're like the average person, like those people in Hong Kong are legit freedom fighters. But no, man, it's, for me, no, I don't equate it the same way. We live in a country where this country was 100% set up to benefit a different group of people from us. We live in a country where people who look like us right now don't get the same shake. Chinese people, like in China, not everybody is Chinese, but the people, like, it's Chinese people oppressing Chinese people. That sounds fucked up. It's a very simplistic way of putting it, because it's deeper than that. But being real, is Chinese people oppressing Chinese people. It's not.
No. And if a Hong Kong do that, because I have spoken to Hong Kong people and non-Hong Kong people, they would go crazy by you saying that.
Yeah, and I don't give a shit. I mean, I'm just saying I don't care, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, it's Chinese folks doing it to Chinese folks. I get that there are different cultures because of the British occupation, et cetera, et cetera. I know this. I also don't give a shit. They were living as a separate entity for X amount of time. They knew shit was coming and it was going down. They were prideful in that they didn't want to they said, this is our home, we're not leaving. And the Chinese government was like, actually, we own you now. I get all that, but it's not the same thing. So why are we trying to have apples to apples and apples to orange conversation?
You see, NBC, I'm just playing devil's advocate. See, I agree with you in a sense of, why should LeBron worry about what's happening with Hong Kong and China? For what reason? He's a black guy who probably grew up poor, suffered racism and so forth. And now he's reached a level where he's influential of his own talents and his own hard work, why should he be held accountable for what's happening in freaking Hong Kong and China?
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you right now. Like, look at AJ's comment right there. There's a literal genocide happening in China. They legit are imprisoning people, straight up whole communities in China. They're legitimately imprisoning whole communities. Similar, but not the same as what the Australians did with the Aborigines, right? That you want to talk about some fucked up shit like, hey, I'm just going to take your kid because your kid, you can't take care of your kid. I know you can't take care of your kid because I took your job, but, I'm taking your kid as a ward of the state. Oh, yeah, and I'm going to sterilize you all. Oh, and I'm going to poison your drinking water so that you can't make more of you. And I'm not going to apologize when I get caught. Right? But anyway, yeah, you know what? There's a lot of genocide going on on this planet. But it's like you can't expect, just because a guy speaks out about the genocide that he sees outside of his window, that his position is now invalidated because he's not speaking about genocide happening 4,000 miles away from him. Nah, bro, that's not how that shit works.
No.
Because I'm just gonna say, like, both are right. What's going on, the genocide, 100% wrong. What LeBron's speaking about, 100% wrong. He doesn't need to speak about both for them to both have merit, and it doesn't take away from what he's speaking about just because he didn't bring out what you want him to talk about. He's also under no obligation, as Hitman said, to champion someone else's cause. Every American saw what was going on live TV, bro. And did we do anything? Did you see your friends saying shit about what was going on in Hong Kong? I mean, I saw a few of mine, but they're, the wokies, but the average person does not give a fuck. Just right now, as we're speaking, as I'm talking to you, there's a Chinese dude who does not give a fuck about me going about his life. Do you think he's over there saying, man, the plight of the black people in America is really he's not. He is not.
He doesn't give a damn. Because I told you, like, I went to school with Chinese people, Hong Kong people as well. Keep it real. These guys don't like black people. They don't give a freaking damn about black people. Keeping it as, hence why I just said, guys, just before you hold LeBron to the fire, do you think this Hong Kong Chinese, because I know all the kind of jokes and stuff that they crack about black people. Why the hell should LeBron be jumping up and down for them when, do you know the kind of stuff they say about you and your people? So come on. I mean, look, nah.
Bro, I'm going to tell you right now, as somebody who is integrating, I'm doing air quotes, into an Asian family, right? So remember I told you my girl is Asian, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of racism there.
I can only imagine.
But I get it. But I'm just going to tell you 100%. She's not Chinese, but her culture shares a lot of similarities in the way that they view people of color who happen to be black or of African descent.
Yeah.
The first question, granted, her mom loves me now that she's met me. She knows, my business is booming. I'm about something. You know what I mean? Like, she loves me. She told me straight up, as long as you love my daughter, I will love you. But what do you think the first question she asked about me was when my girl told her that she was dating a black man?
Has he done any crime?
Yeah, crime, tattoos, cornrows. That was fun. What does he do for a living? So I'm just saying, like, and there's a reason why, like I said, I know for a fact people in Asia, they have a specific kind of view about black people. So
no, I mean, it's not like they view us as gorillas and monkeys and unclean.
No, they just know that they believe the hype that's been sold about us. We're all from broken homes. We're all on welfare. We've been here for 400 years. How come we I mean, I'm being facetious, but you guys have been here for 400 years. How come my family's been here for 10 and we own a gas station?
But,
But,
but
you know
also
what I mean?
it's because I told you I went to school for 7 years with Chinese people. 7 years. So I went to school with them. I went to Japan. So I've really know the whole Asian thing. So it's that, and there's monkeys, gorillas. They are very unclean. This kind of hip hop cool, a very kind of narrow-minded, backward view of black people.
Yeah, so
So
Japan's the same way, right? Like, there's a whole hip hop subculture in Japan. Like, it's crazy, right? Like so that's why we say.
actually, because I don't want us to deviate too much. So before I come to, because I want Tony just to quickly come on this, man. So let me just hit this. So Coastly Awesome, man, thanks for the dope, man. He says this isn't a defense of China, but the US fighting for Muslims' rights is hilarious. Who on the regular abuse countries, and don't forget the China century of shame when the UK stole Hong Kong. No, for me, look, everyone's a hypocrite. America invaded Iraq, talking about liberties and freedoms. Really? How about the liberties and freedoms on your own ground? Everyone's a hypocrite. Nobody's good. No one is this saints and lovely angelic country. Every single country, specifically the UKs, the Americas, Russia, and so forth. These guys are the biggest hypocrites who sell, liberty, freedom, free and so forth. But the way that their countries were built, the way their empires was built, was just murdering and massacring people. Everyone's a freaking hypocrite. Everyone's a hypocrite. So Tony, just last year on this, man. So do you agree with that points of LeBron? He should only just worry for self, or do you think that there are people that should go out and help others in need, or just worry for self?
I think moralistically, considering the times and us still, fighting for voting rights in the United States and things of that nature, it would behoove him to, use his voice and his platform for the benefit of those who have lived a similar experience as him. And I would expect him to do that, to MB's point, before he ever addressed something across the ocean as far as a whole nother country. I think that's a very, that's a weird thing that people think about Americans, that we are so privileged to the point that we should always care or attempt to come to the rescue of others, as if there aren't any plights or issues still arising in Black neighborhoods or minority neighborhoods in general.
But you see, Tony, it's the America that people live is not the America that is shown. Similar to me, the England that is promoted out into the world isn't the England that I live in. So the America that is promoted is, hey, the land of the free, big things, Hollywood, NBA, loud, this, that, so forth. Like, I only knew that there were poor people in Hollywood through my brother. I thought in Hollywood everything was amazing, big houses, everybody's rich and so forth. But my brother said, no, do you know there's a thing called like Skid Row, where there are people who are like dead poor in Hollywood? I was like, what? Hollywood? The Hollywood that I get promoted? So yeah, it's all about the promotion. But continue.
Yeah. But I think to that point, I think that, again, a lot of people, as MB has said, they just go immediately to celebrity to get their latest news, or, to even get an opinion on anything. And not that I, completely concur with everything Black Lives Matter says, but I do think that it's unfortunate that even in present day tense, people still have this impression that all things are equal, or that most Americans are faring well, in spite of the consistent protests that have gone on for the last couple of years. Like, clearly there's an issue. And the fact that they are still looking at LeBron, a Black man, to speak on what's going on in China, I find that very problematic. And I think that's probably something that he should address at some point, as far as, where his alliances lie. Again, like, sure, help the little man and all that stuff. But again, I would say that rich people don't get rich off of helping the little people. I think, they, most often than not, they step on little people to get to where they are.
All right, so I want us to swing into something slightly odd. So do you guys know this issue with Mr. Potato Head? So I'll just sort of like, relate for you guys. So Mr. Potato Head again, he's let me try and bring a picture of. So he's obviously this famous toy who they've decided that, because, everyone is now changing and everybody now wants to sort of now play this kind of, whether you want to call it identity, agenda politics, or so forth, they've decided to pretty much make Mr. Potato Head gender neutral. So the toy brand will just be called Potato Head because they say that it's that's having the Mr. is sort of ignoring and denying the various genders and so forth that exist. Because first of all, I just want to just get your initial thoughts to that because I want to talk about a wider issue with regards to these specific groups, LGBTQ and so forth, and why I think that their tactics or the tactics of companies is only going to do more harm than good. So that's really the wider thing I want to talk into. But first to Hitman, your view on Hasbro wanting to make Mr. Potato Head gender neutral so that they don't sort of like close off the other genders that exist out there and why this toy has to be involved in this kind of politics. Hitman. All right.
Okay, so
sorry.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my thing with this. So I've got a mixed opinion on this. One of them is about the action. The other one is about the response. I'm going to start with the response, but the response pretty much to me is that it's a bunch of the people who are talking about this they're not subject to. It's people complaining about change. A lot of conservatives, a lot of white people, a lot of people who are just like, they feel that their country is being taken away from them, their culture is being taken away from them, they're losing this culture war. The truth is that the pendulum has always been swinging back and forth, and it's moving further away from them. It's not just this, but like a lot of things that are going on, and they call things like this cancel culture. Pretty much it's their code word for, that like this stuff is changing in a way we don't like. It's canceled. But the truth is that this type of stuff has been happening to Black people and people of color for decades and centuries. Any accomplishment we had, anything that we do gets wiped away, gets washed away like it's irrelevant. So with this, I really don't care that much. Now, as far as the actual thing, as far as my personal take on it, which is what was actually done with in the context of Mr. Potato Head. I grew up playing with them, but like, it's a potato. It's a damn potato. You realize that plants are asexual. People need to realize that plants are asexual.
But it represents
that they don't have
me.
a gender.
Sorry, go on.
Plants don't have a gender.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, here, but go on. You say plants don't have a gender.
Plants are asexual. They reproduce asexually. You throw the seeds in the ground, they get watered, they get fertilized, and they're done. And they grow. And that's it. They have both. They contain elements from both genders in order to reproduce. So it's a plant.
Pollen is tree spunk, though. Just pointing that out.
So okay, your views for Ember, your thoughts on this?
It's just more human vanity. It's just more people needing to see themselves in everything and getting butthurt when they don't. I consider myself an Apache helicopter. You're a bigot because you don't offer an Apache helicopter gender in the toy that I like. It's like, you're not even gonna fucking play with it. Who even plays with that anymore? This isn't the 80s anymore, dude. Like, novelty shit like that is like, come on. It's just like I said, it's human vanity, and that's for me what it comes down to. And it's like, I don't know. It's just dumb. If you first off, there was Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, so both sexes were represented. Whatever you in your fucking head want to call yourself, which is fine. You want to be a girl today? Cool. You want to be a boy today? Cool. I don't have to go along with your belief, but I welcome you to have it. But you're just because you feel like a certain way today, or just because you want to say that you're non-binary, you're not a girl or a boy, even though you pee standing or sitting in the privacy of your own home. Like, there's no reason to put other people through that shit. That's the problem with. So I have this theory, right, where people are born different. We know that, right? We know even like gay people, science is showing people are born just with a natural urge to be attracted to their own sex, right? We get that. No one is denying that. But there is a difference between, like, I have a theory that a lot of this kind of bullshit that you're seeing is coming from people who are newly non-binary or newly, like, gay or whatever have you. People who discovered that they were this way. And what I mean by that is just the same way that somebody who discovers that they're a vegan or whatever have you, and then you can't shut them the fuck up about vegan food for like years, or CrossFit people, the same thing, right? They run with it. Those are I've got plenty of gay friends who, they just happen to be gay, but that's not the first thing you think about when you see them, because they don't carry themselves and beat you over the head with their sexuality. I'm not saying that other people have to be that way. I'm just saying I can always tell who's new to the crew based on how flamboyant they are. And I'm not talking about the guys who are a little effeminate, or women who dress a little bit like guys. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people who like literally beat you over the head with the fact that they're different, and they demand that you accept their lifestyle and X, Y, and Z. Those are the folks I'm talking about. It's 100%. It's 100% just a situation of people who they want validation from the world. That's all I'm saying. I don't get it, but like I said, they're entitled to their opinion on it. There's just someone's personal beliefs and personal freedoms stop where mine begin. And that's pretty much how I approach life.
Tony?
So my immediate thoughts are, who is still thinking about Potato Head in general, whether it's Mr. or Mrs., but the fact that there was both sexes already, I'm not really understanding. And then part of the toy in general was you could remove the mustache, you could sort of create whatever you needed it to be anyway. So I think that this is incredibly lazy on the part of whoever is trying to come up with this marketing scheme to be more inclusive in general. I'm pretty sure this is all something to make it all popular again, and they probably have a whole stock of a bunch of potato heads that they are just not selling. I'm not sure, but I think the whole thing in general is lazy versus actually creating something new, something people would actually care about. So if you really cared that much about the message that you're trying to drive behind this, but just to choose something that's already in existence is just weird. Because again, you can remove the mustache, you can do whatever. You could switch Mrs. Potato Head with, like, it doesn't matter. It's a potato. Like, the whole thing is stupid. And again, I also don't think that kids in general are as concerned about his gender or genders like that unless they're playing with dolls anyway. Like the whole idea is just weird, and I wonder what the motive is behind it. Like, why are we trying to teach kids early on about gender aside from what that child is? Like, it's just, I don't know. The whole thing is weird.
So, and I think this.
I got to jump in there too
Okay.
and talk about like the about the act about transgender. So, with my personal take on transgender is that I agree with a lot of people, and a lot of people would agree with this. Now, as far as children, I don't think children should. I mean, I don't think children should have that whole transgender thing with children and minors. That shouldn't even be a discussion. I mean, that should be. I mean, they're minors. It just gets crazy, and then and I do get that there is some element like where there are very rare people who, a very small percentage of people, like one of them being Jamie Lee Curtis, who were born hermaphrodites, who they could have been snipped and changed to one of the genders, depending gender like at birth or like at the very early point in their life, and that can mess them up. But like apart from that, yeah, it is what it is.
So now here's my thing. And it's just specifically with whether you want to say the LGBT group or people who are gender neutral. I don't consider myself a liberal, but I don't, as long as you're not harming anyone, I don't really give a damn what you say you are. I don't care. But the issue is when you try to force your views onto me, because this is a pattern that people are doing. Now, I think Hasbro and these people, they're doing it for business. It's for business. They don't really care. They're doing it because it's cool. It's cool to now be, what do you want to call it, woke. It's cool now to be, hey man, transgender, this, that, we're free, we are evolving and everything, because business people, it's okay, we have to tap into what is trending. If you force people to say, hey, I'm not a man or a woman, I'm a mix, don't call me a male or a female, or like, these are my pronouns, and you just force it onto people, people will push back. Anytime you force people into something, you will get a violent response. You have to be tactical. So that's just my advice for the LGBT crew and so forth, is the tactics that you're using, whether you are enforcing the message in a popular film, enforcing it into a popular commercial, enforcing it into a popular kind of medium and so forth. People because it's going to be very hard to get everyone on board with like, hey man, I love transgenders, I love these people. It's going to be very hard to get people on board. So you now say, no, you must accept me for what I am. You must accept me as being normal and regular and so forth. That's like, whoa, wait. See, because for me, as much as I don't have an issue with it, I do find it a bit odd. So if I find it odd, am I now a villain or bad? Now, all because I find it odd and strange doesn't mean that I now hate you. But I'm like, okay, so you're neither a male or a female. For at least 30 years of my life, all I've known is male, female, male, female. So if you now come up and say to you, oh, I'm neither male or female, give me a moment to be like, whoa, what the hell? That's wild. I don't understand. So the aggressiveness that these groups go forward to shove these things in your face, people are just going to react violently. So what you want is, the aim is to have a society where people are now accepting of whatever you are, whoever you are, however you live your life. That is the main aim. Might not get there. We may not get there. I mean, if we believe in Star Trek and in 3,000 years, hey man, we're all living like in a utopia. But at the moment right now, a lot of people are just going to get more and more angry and much more frustrated by saying this stuff is being. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready to sort of accept this because see, people just feel that hey, you should be accepting. We're all humans, and if you're not accepting, you're evil, you're bad. But what about people who are like me, who are? It's not that I hate you, but this is a bit of an extremity to me. So if I'm watching a film that I love, and I see a lady, and then suddenly she has like a penis, or I see two guys and suddenly they're basically naked and they start kissing. I'm like, whoa, not because I hate you, but this is a bit much. This is a bit much, you know, because I say to myself that no issues with anybody, whoever you are, and so forth. But if I'm out in public and I see two guys kissing, I'm like, okay, boom, let me. But initially, I'm like, geez, you know. But the kind of initial reaction, people attack you for it. That you're not even allowed to be like, you're not even allowed to go pause. Let me just take a moment. So, I mean, Hitman, where are you at with this thing? What kind of tactic do you think that people who are gender neutral, the pronoun people and so forth, do you think that the tactic they're using maybe is right, that you have to force people to accept that this is how people are? Or maybe they need to be a bit more tactical? Or they have to have another strategy in allowing society sort of to accept people the way that they are? Hitman.
There is I mean, with these things, there is a pushback. There always is. And one thing about this is when it comes to genders, it's going to be interesting because it's a difficult place to be. This isn't like race. This isn't even like base sexuality. This is actual biology. I mean, for a lot of people, this is a bridge too far. This is a bridge too far.
Why? What's a bridge too far specifically?
When you talk about, so when I say it's a bridge too far, like when you talk about things like genders and you start going into things like athletics and you start going into things like bathrooms and so on. I mean, because then you have to, because when you start talking about genders and saying that gender doesn't exist or there's a million genders, the problem with that is that you end up having something where you end up starting to see the realities of gender, such as physical capabilities of men versus women. And to me, like, the transgender stuff doesn't bother me until like I start seeing stuff when it comes to athletics, because sports, I mean, when you start having like when you start having men and women's sports, it's almost unfair. I mean, it's literally unfair. And then other stuff with that, it's just, I don't know.
But do you think that the tactic, so if let's say you were sort of, you want to basically, you were like a sport of this group, what would you say is the right tactic for society to be much more welcoming of people who are, let's say, gender neutral and so forth? Is it like, no,
I don't
aggressive shoves in people's faces, or you've got to just sort of slowly, is there a way? Is there a strategy?
Yeah, it's the problem with this is that when you have when you do all of this, I mean, it just ends up becoming, I don't know, it almost, I mean, there's no gradual, it's almost hard to say, but there's like really no gradual way to do it. I mean, because as soon as you start saying one or two things with transgender, people are going to get triggered off of that. And it's going to, and you could do one thing at a time. You can do small things at a time. You can do a small transition, but if people are gonna catch on to that quickly. It's not like slowly trying to do, because people caught on quickly when things with race relations started to happen. They're gonna definitely catch on with this. I mean, and they're doing it. So I just see that like what's going on right now is they're just opening the fire hose and just like letting everything all out.
Or MB?
I have a problem with. I mean, honestly, I don't care if men compete in women's sports or women compete in men's sports. I mean, here's the thing: women fought for this dumb shit. That South Park episode was spot on. Women shook their finger at men, told us that we were uninclusive, championed trans people, and then, when trans women who, obviously like who's about my size, over 6'6" and 300 pounds, steps in the ring with her, she's like, wait, what? Yeah, this is the bed you made, fucking lie in it. And that's, but that's where I am at this point. Like, you know what? I don't care. I remember people gave Joe Rogan shit when he was talking about Fallon Fox. And Fallon Fox was like one of the first transgender MMA folks, right? And she was like fucking wrecking chicks. Because regardless of the fact that she's transitioned, her muscle structure and her bone structure and her bone density is that of a man. So she is, yeah, there's a vagina there now surgically, but she fucking wrecked chicks. I'm talking broken orbitals from striking. And everyone was telling Joe he was being not inclusive, he was an asshole, et cetera, et cetera. She almost crippled somebody in the ring, straight up, because it was a full grown, at that point, physically, a full grown man hitting a full grown woman as hard as he could in the face. And nobody said a word. Everyone told him he was primitive, he was a caveman, he was this, he was that. So, you know what? This is what society wanted. And this isn't something new. This is shit that goes back 10 years plus now, minimum. So, whatever. Let's let a few more of these women get destroyed in sports, and then they can cry to their husbands, and they'll write some shit and some rule or some law, whatever have you, and they'll change it. Just like everything else happens in politics. Remember Tipper Gore going after hip hop, and that's why we have labels on fucking everything now, because she was a bored housewife. So bored housewives change more things in politics than anyone else, besides the money people. So let's let them keep getting rocked in the face. Let's let them just have their daughters go out to sporting events and get lapped 6 times by a born male. And then maybe they'll cry about it. But until then, just shh, everybody just watch. Just let it happen. This is what they cried about when they told us that we were pieces of shit and we were primitive. No, now we're letting it happen. Go ahead.
Tony?
In general, I get that transgender individuals have an issue as far as being murdered, and the attention that's necessary, to address that is not being really brought to the forefront. However, I think that when it comes to their approach with trying to normalize their lifestyles through the eyes or imagery of children or their toys and things of that nature, I think that that's a major cop out. And I think that similar to racial issues, I think that they should keep the conversation surrounding legalities there, whether their constitutional rights are being held and all of those things. And I think that's where the conversation should be, to keep it in a more serious tone versus changing toys or affecting children in high schools and all that. Like, I don't even think that I mean, personally, I guess if I'm not transgender or whatever, I personally just did not know that it was that big of an issue in schools, nor do I still see it as that big of an issue in school. I think that a lot of times that when transgender people do come out is more so as adults and things of that nature. And again, that's where the conversation should steer from in terms of, whether they're being discriminated for jobs and that type of conversation. But as far as, getting into sports and again, changing bathrooms and things of that nature, like I get that it's I guess consuming, to, figure out like public bathrooms and all that. But I think ultimately the conversation should be around, are you being treated as a citizen? And again, I don't think toys or, what happens in school is necessarily that extreme. And again, I think that they were getting a lot of steam from, putting out there like, hey, transgender are dying at these enormous rates and blah, 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 blah. And again, I think that the person that they should be reacting to, the people that they should be responding to are the police, the law enforcement, to go and find out about these, mysterious deaths or however this is going about. And even too, like I would assume, based off of TV and whatnot, like, okay, transgender, they have a hard time finding employment, so they always I don't know, being streetwalkers or whatever the case is. And I don't mean to generalize that, but I think that that's the perception that's out there. And if it is close to that, then that's what they should be addressing, right? Like the employment and things of that nature. Again, steering it around how the civil rights movement moved. Like I don't think that they focused on creating brown doll babies. Like I don't think that that was the idea, and I don't think that that's a very serious conversation. And if they want to be taken seriously, it should be around, okay, your day to day life, how are you affected and what's going on and how can we address that politically, not you're going to go change toys. Like it's just weird. And I think that's just a shine of an even worse light on them or a more worse light on them because there's already this idea that, in this day and time, like people, you can't even trust people with your kids. And so now to have, the LGBT, actively reaching out to children like that, I just don't think that it's that good of an idea, especially the younger children.
So okay, so what do you think would be the right tactic? So I think I heard you say go through legislature and so forth. So go through more kind of legislation paths
Right.
and
So I ultimately, aside from being assaulted or being murdered, and then no one actually finding out who these murderers are. Aside from that, I have not heard more direct demands of them, aside from, making it gender neutral bathrooms in the high school. Like, okay, are the kids asking for that or are these adult transgender people asking for that? Like, I really feel like there should be a differentiation. And if that is the case, then, back that up with data, statistics, and all of that stuff, the same way that it's been required for minorities to get the rights that they have. And I think right now they don't have, and I guess similar to the argument with, Black Lives Matter, like, what's the agenda? Like, what do you plan to accomplish by doing something as in my mind childish as changing Mr. Potato Head? Like what is that supposed to be? You know?
and that is my issue there because it's like that tactic isn't going to work because that tactic of changing Mr. Potato Head is like, forget about that you're angry because look, it's a freaking potato and so forth. But do you really believe changing a toy and making it gender neutral is going to push the needle anywhere? You're going to have two main reactions. People who will be angry and people who will be like, it's freaking Mr. Potato Head. So that's not really sort of changing anything. You know what I mean?
And you know what? What I would add to that, I think that a lot of times with transgender, people go to like drag shows and, now there's RuPaul's Drag Race and all of that. And again, their image has now been curated to like just pure entertainment. And again, now moving forward to like changing toys and all that, like they're getting less and less serious with the demands, and I feel like that's the problem.
Okay.
Yo,
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
real quick, my friend's dad made a point about feminism that actually works for this too, right? So he had said many feminists lost all sight of fighting for real equality because at this point they've about won that fight, as so they should have. He said they're now fighting for absolute domination and degradation. And I'm like, ooh, that's...
Wait, so who is fighting for domination, you're saying?
So it's like basically, the right now is talking about cancel culture everywhere, right? And they're saying that basically the left is trying to cancel anyone who disagrees with them. Now, now I'm not gonna lie though. We're at a point now where I remember when I was growing up, if a kid was different, if a kid was gay, he was ridiculed mercilessly in school. We're now at a point where if you tease the gay kid in school, the jocks kick your ass. And it depends on the school, but for the most part, people don't play that shit anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's not the world we live in anymore. And if you get caught being the one who is not tolerant, you do get canceled. That's the world we live in.
But do you think canceling still sort of exists in school, specifically ages like 13 to 17?
I mean, hell, when we were growing up, weren't there popular and unpopular kids based on one certain action? Your whole grade school or high school career got murked just based on you doing or saying the wrong thing. Half of high school was the stress of saying or doing the wrong thing and being thought of as less by your peers because kids don't let shit go. So we're at a point now, though, where you pick on the wrong kid, he's friends with the right people, you get canceled based on being a bully. Like, kids now are being raised that bullying is the worst thing you can do to another person. You can report bullying to teachers now and you get suspended or even expelled for bullying. That's where we are. And that's my thing. We're at a point now where when I was growing up, there was a gay kid in my class named John and everyone was horrible to him.
Oh, yeah, same. I mean, basically, I had a guy, he was called Stewie. I didn't know he was gay because I was too young and immature. But looking back, I was like, oh yeah, but he was gay. But I just thought that he was, you're just being stupid and blah, 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 blah. But like now looking back, he was, but everybody just teased him because he did stuff that was like, wait, this is a bit odd and weird. Like, why are you doing this stuff? Why are you looking at this stuff? But yeah, he was gay.
Yeah, and then you do that now and your parents get called to school and you get a talking to about how you need to be more inclusive. Things have gotten better. It's the same thing with a lot of the same way with the Black community. Things have gotten better. Maybe they're not there where people want it 100%, but the fight is not the same as it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Someone made a point in the comments before, gay dudes have been hanging out in San Francisco low key and accepted for decades at this point. The fight, it's like Tony said, the fight at this point, you being extra just because you have nothing else to fight about. That's why things are getting so ridiculous, because the big shit's taken care of. There are gay politicians, openly gay politicians now. That shit was murder. I remember dudes in the 80s, their whole political career being nuked by even the accusation that they weren't a standard white Protestant male with, 2.5 kids and a house in the country. Now you got dudes taking having their husband hold the Bible that they swear on and kissing them in front of people to get to take office. Come the fuck on, people. I'm not saying you're there yet, but I'm saying you don't need to go after Mr. Potato Head at this point because nobody gives a shit about that. You have people who represent you and look like you in office. Focus on how you can help those people spread the message. Don't just make a whole bullshit message. You're the boy that cried wolf at this point. People are going to stop giving a shit because you're starting to mess with their regular life. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Question for all of you guys. I wouldn't know whether you speaking this because I think I've had differing views on part of this. So somebody who is homosexual, nature or nurture?
Like homosexuality.
What'd you say?
So basically, somebody who is homosexual, is it nature or is it nurture? Is it you are born that way, or you make certain choices and you've made certain choices to become that way?
Yes. No, literally, yes. I think part of it's both. I don't think anyone's been turned quote unquote gay. It's been proven. Like, I went to college with a guy with 2 dads. He's not gay. He's not gay. It doesn't, just because your parents are gay or just because you grew up around effeminate people as a man doesn't make you homosexual. Just because, like, shit, my dad died and I got left with my mom and my 2 sisters. I'm straight. What the hell? Like, that's dumb, right? Like, it's a matter of people are born they're born and they're wired differently, and we just have to accept that. Why does it matter? Nobody here gives a shit if I'm like who I'm going to bed with, and I don't care who they're going to bed with. Fuck who you want to fuck, man. Just don't hurt kids. As long as you're not hurting kids, nobody gives a fuck. I don't care if you're a guy and you want to walk around in ladies' pumps at night. I don't give a shit, bro. So that's me though. I can't speak for everybody. Some people do care for some reason.
Can I jump in here? I just jumped in here, but just playing devil's advocate. Do you think that type of behavior is something that kids need to see? Like, homosexuality on television, people, women dressing like men dressing like women, just the whole confusion or blending of the genders. Is this something that we're just going to have to ride with, and just one day we're all just going to just be all blended up and gender won't matter? Or is it something that we need to like kind of have some kind of traditional values about? Like, the kids don't need to see this until they're a certain age.
Because
what do you mean? Well, that's on the parent though. So why should I?
Not really. Not when it's on television.
About schools.
Wait,
if you're in school or in media, then it's very little a parent can do when they take their kids to school and they've been taught something, or mass media, commercials and so forth.
That's at school, though. I'm sorry. Did I fall into a world where parents don't control the fucking television at home or computer time or the sites that the kids go to? Is that not a thing anymore? Do they not have
a lot of the times it's not announced. A lot of the times it'll just be a character in a TV show that you're watching, a character in a movie that you're watching, a scene in the movie that you're watching. A lot of the times it's not announced as the gay movie. Sometimes it's just gay shit in the movie, and you don't know it until it happens.
But the parents don't. So I get it now. So my parents were just fucked up and crazy and going and seeing movies together before they brought me to it. So I guess my parents were just fucked up with that.
I mean, no, not somebody saying that. I just don't know if people do that now anymore.
That's on them. But that's on them. You control what your kid consumes. So my parents went to movies together. But we didn't go to movies all the time because shit was expensive. For this reason, I appreciated it more. It was a whole thing. Movie, McDonald's, I got a Happy Meal. It was fucking awesome, right? But my parents went to go see movies beforehand. This is before the internet where they knew that, hey, there's a kiss scene at this point. You know what I mean?
I mean, you would basically have to shelter you would have to take your kid's phone, no TV, no internet, no nothing.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that right there isn't something that most parents are going to do, bro.
And that's on them. Here's the thing.
But that doesn't mean that you have no holds barred on media. You have to have some rules.
Yeah,
but wait, real quick. NBC, this is the key. See, MB, I think you're right. Let's say if this was back like when we were growing up, back in the 90s and so forth.
It's impossible to control everything, bro. How is your fucking kid? Why does your kid have a phone? Kids have
phones.
Why did you kid have?
I see 10-year-olds with phones.
Yeah, kids have phones, man, for emergencies.
Bro, they have phones. Their whole purpose of the phone, it calls the pre-programmed numbers and 911. You can't use the it's for emergencies. But even beyond that, you're saying kids have apps like, wait, there was a parental lock on the App Store. I know that because I had to set it for my niece. Yo, why do you guys keep moving the fucking goalposts to be lazy ass parents? That's why we are where we fucking are right now.
No. See, MB, the way this world is, kids are smarter, they're more savvy. You can put all those parental locks you want in there. A smart kid, a cunning kid is going to find a way around it. I'm going to find a way around it.
I got
and
past
now,
my parents' parental lock. My parents been parental locks. I got past that. So
what was the password on your parents' parental lock?
I don't remember, but it was one on the TV and it was one on the computer. I got past both of them. So,
man, Jesus Christ. All right, whatever. It's fine. You know what then? No. Here. You know it's fine then, right? Cool. No kissing on television. No. I remember when NYPD Blue for the first time showed a bare ass and everyone lost their shit. I remember that. But all right, no kissing on TV. No straight or homosexual kissing on TV because you can't ban one because that's hateful. If there's going to be gay characters or black characters, because there will be parents who may not want to, not have their children exposed to people of different colors. This is a slippery slope. So it's either we ban everything and we go back to being fucking Protestants, or
no, I don't. I mean, I don't think you ban everything or you greenlight everything. I think that we're talking about is like morality and is morality supposed to change with the technology, right? Like,
are you saying that homosexuality
just because we
immoral?
No, I'm saying that there are some people in the U.S. or in the world who thinks homosexuality is immoral, and that's their right. They also have the right to say, well, I don't want to see it on television. That's something that the people will have to debate about, vote about, have a conversation about, and shit like that. You can't just green light or red light everything. Like you got to have a conversation about stuff.
No, you're right, but check this out. So, let's reason this, right? So, what percentage would you say that the percentage of people who have a problem with homosexuality on television is higher or lower than the percentage of people who don't give a shit?
Oh shit! I think Corey drops off. You see, that's interesting.
Because here's the thing: if it's a large percentage of people who have a problem with it, then you're not changing. I mean, like then those people, then that's the consensus of the group, right? If it's a small minority who just they grew up a certain way, men have their hair short, girls have hair long, girls don't wear pants, shit like that. If they have that very 1960s fucking view of the world, or 1950s anyway, do we change everything?
See, MB, I'm going to be real with you, and I want to hear what Hitman. Oh, here is. I want to hear what others say because I'm just going to hazard a guess. I'm going to hazard a guess, and I may be wrong. But I'm going to hazard a guess because how people are in public is not how they are in private. So people in public can be like, "Hey, gay, gender neutral, this, that, I love it," but in private, no. Once you now come through my front door, no. In the open, with my kids away, oh, hey, lovely. But when I come to, no. So I'm going to hazard a guess. I believe that there are more people who would have an issue with that being forced upon them than people who don't.
Do you want to know why I think that's not true, though? Do you want to know why I think that's not true? How much money, before they push a show or before they push anything in television, right? They do focus groups, right? So anytime a character, anytime there's, when they're testing a new show, when they're doing anything like that, pilots, whatever have you, they test these things in Hollywood, right? Hollywood is a weird fucking place. Whatever, they're more accepting there than a lot of other places. We're not going to say that somebody growing up in the Midwest is going to be as open necessarily, than as someone who grew up drinking the Kool-Aid in Cali. But at the same time, if they were going to lose a significant amount of money doing a certain thing, do you think that they would do it? Meaning, if putting a gay character or having the main character be gay and he occasionally kisses another man, do you think that there is enough people that would tune out of that show to make it so that the advertising dollars are not there, thus making the show not profitable.
You see, okay, Ambi, then I ask you this. How many, let's even use Disney as an example. How many flagship Disney shows for all audiences is there a prominent gay character amongst the cast?
Like Disney, like regular shows that come up, or
MCU, thingy shows, Disney Plus, just name anything. Any prominent Disney shows where there is a known character that is gay. Remember, this is for all audiences. You see, like, you would be right in a sense of, because if we're not dealing with, let's say, 15 and up and so forth, people are like, okay, no, let's be progressive, put a gay character here and so forth. But if it's something for all audiences, now, maybe the live chat can tell me, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think there's any kind of main show that would feature like a prominence or main gay character. I don't really think there is. But Corey,
that's actually not true. Beauty and the Beast. What's his name's?
LeFou?
Yeah, that dude's gay. If you actually search, there's an entire fucking list of Disney characters who are gay. If you look at the entire fucking CW network, most of the main characters are there's every show has at least one gay rainbow like color. You know what I mean?
What's your argument? Is your argument that America really does want these gay characters in movies, or
no? My argument is that most people don't give a fuck, and it's the people saying, oh, we can't have that shit. That's projecting their personal feelings. I'm just saying, because
when you say most people, you mean most of the country?
No, I just mean people in general. Not even in this country, just people in general. I personally, like, I'm going to tell you like this.
I don't think so, man. I think there are a lot of people in the world who don't like homosexuality.
I didn't say that.
I wouldn't say a lot of people in the world. I don't know whether I can go ahead and say that.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's a lot less people who give a shit about who someone else goes to bed with than you think. I think that's projection from people who do give a fuck. And it's weird as shit. It's weird as shit that people actually care who's fucking who, as long as they're not hurting kids.
What I notice more is that people, when it's in somebody's family, they usually care more than they do if it's not somebody in their family. But when they find out somebody in their family, then they usually change their point of view.
100%, but that's because it humanizes gay people to them, where gay was a thing to them, and now
so people really do care. I think.
Yeah, that's my point. Everybody knows somebody or has someone in their family who's gay, and if they don't have a particularly sour relationship with that person, they just see them as that person. They don't see them as, oh, there's my gay uncle. Everybody knew who Larry was bringing to fucking Thanksgiving for years. They just let it go. No one brought it up. Come on.
Okay. I want to bring some other guys. So, Tony, your view, do you think that there are a lot more people who have an issue with homosexuality, or do you think, like Emmy says, that most people don't actually really give a damn who you go to bed with?
I think that in general, it depends on, people's religiosity and things of that nature. I think that more people care about the feminization of men versus like whether they're actually gay or not. Yeah, and I do agree. I think that the more people come out within their family structure, the more people sort of accept it. But as far as like being out in the public and stuff like that, I do think that there's an extent to what MB said earlier, that a lot of times there are sometimes men who are a little bit extra just because I feel like they have something to prove. And then of course that makes some people uneased and things of that nature. But I think that the more and more that we see a different array of gay men, I think, it'll be less stigmatizing. I think right now we are used to seeing the far extreme of, feminization and things of that nature. And I think that that's what people are railing against versus, people who are of a more masculine nature. Because I think that people fear that, that sort of fluid behavior will then pass down to children as they see it and all that stuff. I think that that's the concern more so than who people are actually sleeping with.
So, see, my thing is this is that, and this I've always wondered this, and I think even MB sort of alluded to this, is that why are people so bothered about whether someone is gay or not if it is not even within your proximity?
Fucking Karens, that's why.
It's like, because it's like I've never understood why that is such an issue. Like, now, if somebody's like now encroaching, boom, but why are you going out of your way to be bothered by who someone sleeps with in the privacy of their own home? Like, why are you acting like, oh no, like, that's wild? Because it's like what they're doing is what they're doing. Because my key thing is that they're not harming anyone. As long as they're not harming anyone or doing anything negative to anyone, why do you have such an issue with that?
I really think a lot of it has to do, again, with religion. I think some of the basis of religion is being concerned about your neighbor and things of that nature, and concerning yourself with somebody else's life, being saved and whatnot. And I think that a lot of the stories out of the Bible are more so like leaning towards like, oh, God hates the world because of what man is doing around. And so people spend their lives investing in other people's lives as to reassure that their own life is safe. And I think a lot of people in general, like in any situation, even outside of, worrying about someone's sexuality, people feel better about themselves by concerning themselves with somebody else because they think like, okay, well, at least I'm not that. Let me worry about that versus what my own issues are.
On a deeper level, I would say that I think there's a bit of a macho culture in the Black community, the Latino community, places like that where homosexuality is still kind of taboo and stuff. And I think that macho culture is kind of like, it was also a big threat to the LGBT community in the Western world, because
but Corey, I think, because I'm looking even at the live chat, it's religion. If we're going specifically with Africans, Asians, specifically African, it's religion. More so than anything to do with macho-ness, it's religion. I think religion, that is the real main basis.
Spot on, bro, because all of those countries were colonies of super strict religious cultures who colonized those places in the midst of shit like the Inquisition. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't say, oh, well, they hate them in these countries. One, those countries aren't, like, you're comparing, like, right even here in Western Europe and North America, it's accepted. That's most of the advanced world. Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, it's not that they're not advanced, but you've got Orthodox religions in those cultures. So at the same time, it's like, yeah, HH is right. Jamaicans aren't for gay rights. No shit. Most of the islands aren't. Black culture in and of itself, like, being homosexual is looked at like it's sinful in Black culture, Black American culture. That's why the joke about Atlanta, they call Atlanta San Francisco East. You know what I mean? Because they know all the brothers there are like on the down low, like a huge amount of the population, which is another reason why the AIDS epidemic hit Atlanta so hard. So,
I'll be willing to guess that you can find non-religious cultures out there that are also or they're also homophobic though.
Not to the same extent as religious groups.
Yeah, find me one then.
Not to the same. No. They exist. No. They exist, but not to the same extent as people that have the religious foundation. Because those people that have the religious foundation is, I know, they're adamantly against it. Now, for non-religious people who, let's say, they are atheists or so forth, they're like, oh, like, that's just too weird, too odd, and so on and so forth. And you will get those groups there. But the groups where it is largest and most fervent are with religious groups. Because for me, I told you, like, I grew up in Nigeria. To this day, I have never met a gay Nigerian person. To this day. Now, what is the likelihood of the most populous country in Africa that has one of the largest populations where I have not met a single gay person in Nigeria?
Not openly gay, at least.
Oh, look, Corey, of course there are gay people there. Of course there are. Just that the fact that because of how the country is built and how they would view that, in 2021, it's still hush, 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 hush. You know? But, I mean, come on, I want to bring Hitman into this. So, Hitman, I mean, your view, like, what do you think tolerance levels are of, like, gay people are in today's world?
I think for LB, I mean for like gay people, it's increased quite a bit because of acceptance in places like Asia and even some parts of Africa. But I mean, there's still low levels of acceptance in the world, and I mean, and when you talk about trans, it's even crazier. I mean, like, yeah, it's still pretty bad when you think about the overall world.
Because see, my thing here is, and maybe bring in, actually, just to circle back on this, because I think Corey maybe missed this to begin with. I just want to hear your thoughts to this. So, with regards to LeBron, do you view him as an activist, or do you view him as a guy just looking out for self? And if he's looking out for self, do you support him looking out for self, or do you think LeBron should look out for others?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a good question. I view LeBron as not the most influential activist, but he's definitely one of the most. I personally like Colin Kaepernick. I think Colin Kaepernick is going to be vindicated in the future. I think Colin Kaepernick is going to go down. It's not as great as Muhammad Ali, but maybe the next best thing. But yeah, I think he's definitely one of the the great activists in the U.S. Being, I gotta say, being in the U.S., famous black athletes aren't really black anymore. You know what I'm saying? Quote unquote black. They don't really have to be. They don't really have to care about issues. They don't really got to do anything but count their money and enjoy their fucking life. So the fact that he's out there speaking up on this stuff when he don't really have to, I appreciate that. But I don't expect him to go too far. He always has to, he's still got a family. He's still got to provide for his family and stuff like that. But I think he's a little bit too careful for me. I like guys like Colin Kaepernick. I like guys who put it all on the line. That's just me. He's a little bit too careful for me. But he does what he can. At least he does something. He's the most famous athlete in the world, and he still, tries to do something. So I appreciate that. But I don't expect him to do much.
So why would you put Kaepernick in with Ali to that extent? I mean,
not as great as Ali, because number one, Colin Kaepernick risked everything, and he lost his job. I mean, like, he could have made millions. He's making millions off of endorsements now, but he threw away millions and millions of dollars on the table. I mean, how many of us would throw away millions of dollars just to keep silent on something like that? I know that's like life-changing money. And he did, and he spoke up anyway. He spoke about this back in 2016 or 2015 when it wasn't really that popular like it is now. Like, a lot of people were rolling their eyes saying, "Oh, here we go. Why you guys talk about this race shit?" And he did it in a very smart way. He just knelt. He didn't, he made these white people show their ass on TV. And it's what they always do. And for me, like, and the fact that he was blackballed by the NFL, and and everything, it's kind of like a Cinderella story, man. I believe that he's gonna come out good on top in the end. He's gonna come out smelling like roses in the end. I don't know how LeBron's gonna be, or any of these other athletes, but I know in the end, Colin Kaepernick is gonna be vindicated, man. And that's why I put him up there with Muhammad Ali. I think 50 years from now, people are gonna be talking about Colin Kaepernick still. So.
I think the last thing before we sort of round off and so forth. Because this was something that I think I remember talking to my brother about this like some years ago, and I was initially like, I'm not too sure about that, but then I was like, maybe. I want to confess to MB with this. Is there any correlation whatsoever with racism and homophobia, or two totally different things, and people who say they may have received homophobia is not to the same level of racism, or do you see that there are correlations between homophobia and racism?
Can I speak on this one too? I'm sorry. I don't think there's any correlation to it. When you walk into a room, nobody sees your sexuality. Nobody sees what language you speak. Nobody sees what country you come from. All they see is that you're black. So I don't think that's the same as being gay. Now, I'm not trying to say being gay, I'm not trying to diminish homosexuality and the struggle of homosexuals and stuff like that. I'm just saying it's not the same. And I think more people need to yeah, it's just not the same.
So basically, the fights of the LGBT shouldn't be lumped in with the fights for people fighting for rights for black people. Those are two separate things. So black people's rights and LGBT,
I mean,
the issue shouldn't
it's
lump
all
them
civil rights.
together.
I think it's all civil rights, but I'm a gay white man is still a white man in America. I'm sorry, with all the power that comes with that. So I don't think you can lump that into the same category as racial prejudice.
Okay. Tony, talk to me. Do you think that? Go for it.
Sorry. In general, I think that case in point, you have, Bayard Rustin, you have, Zora Neale Hurston, people who, even Langston Hughes, people who were very prominent in the movement, in multiple movements, and discussing, the plight of Black people or Black America in general. And they used it because they understood that the ultimate problem was how people treated them because they were Black, not because of their sexuality. Their sexuality became, a second natured issue. And again, that's not to say that, that there aren't issues with, how gays are treated and discrimination and whatnot, but I don't think that it is as prominent as the issue of color. I think that by and large, the wealth gap issue, the voters' rights issue, all of those things are surrounded by race and not sexuality. Unless somebody can enlighten me, I've never known someone, to be turned away from a voting poll because they were gay, or things of that nature, like these very serious things. And that's what I was trying to get at with the whole, even the transgender issue of like, okay, well, what is the end goal? What is the ultimate issue here? And I do think that they have a very valid case as far as like discrimination in the job place or the workplace, but that's not being vocalized in any aspect, whether it be, having a general spokesperson or what. But anywho, back to this. I do think that these are two very separate issues. I do think that LGBT can use the foundation that, minority groups have used or that Blacks have used in general through the civil rights movement. But ultimately, I do think that it is a very disrespectful notion to say like, gay is the new Black, or, whatever those little tropes are nowadays. Like, yeah, it's not the same, because back then, gays, straights, all of that, we all came as one to address the ultimate issue. And it's still the issue that's coming up today. And I think that even back then, like, again, Bayard Rustin was like Martin Luther King Jr. is almost his right-hand man. Like, gay was not the issue for us. That was something outside of it. Like, yes, religious wise, sure. But when it came down to like fighting for rights, we were fighting for everybody who was Black. And now I don't think that everyone gets that.
All right. Let's take some cues from here. So, oh no, sorry, I didn't. Do you feel bad for Native Americans? They're the real Americans. We, so obviously I'm sure it's American, took their country, yet nobody cares about them. I mean, you want to look at Australia, you want to look at South Africa, and so forth. It's the way of the world, man. It's the unfortunate dark way of the world. But one thing that my brother did tell me though is compare how Americans today treat Native Americans as opposed to how Australians treat the Aborigines. Because what my brother told me is that you see, whether it's through film, teachings, and so forth, you learn about the history of the Native American people and so forth. In Australia, silence, nothing. You hardly hear anything from them. So what they just want is just complete and utter silence. So it's all bad, it's all bad, like what everyone has done. But I think that at least in America, I think somebody even put in here like Dances with Wolves is one film, Last of the Mohicans, and so forth. There is still media done to show you the history of these people. In Australia, there's nothing. Australia will have you believe that Australia is just full of just only white people and that's it. That none of these Aborigines who were actually there actually existed. So, I mean, anyone wants to touch upon this comment?
Yeah, I would just like to add that I think that a lot of times, especially with Black issues, a lot of times, people presume that the solution is if Black people just came together. But I don't think that people make the same assessment with Native Americans. Of course, there are multiple tribes, and there are like, maybe 12 top tribes or something like that are actually recognized by the government. And to my knowledge, none of them actually intercede for the other ones that just didn't make the cut. So I do think that there are certain ones that get privileges. I know that there are, government preferential treatment as far as like government jobs and they, to the extent of what good a reservation is, there's that. But I do think that a lot of it has to do with the overall standpoint of Native Americans. I think that those who do get governmentally recognized in terms of getting those benefits, in terms of getting financial means from the government, the Cherokee and the Creek and all of that, I don't think that they intercede at all for the other Native Americans who may be in like North Dakota, South Dakota, and things of that nature. And I don't think that, that gets much light shed on it. Like, if one's affected, the whole should be affected. But what we actually find is, one group is making it out good and everybody else is, falling to the wayside. And I think that that's something we should look into, or somebody should research more into that, because I don't think that they're coming together as a whole.
So USA isn't ready for an LGBTQ president. So obviously, especially for you guys who live in America, so for Ambien and Corey, do you see at any time in your lifetime an LGBTQ president of America? There still hasn't been a female president.
Can I say something as an American citizen?
Go for it.
I think that in general, as far as being ready for an LGBTQ president, I would be interested in finding out what the sexuality would have to do with the actual policies being put in place, similar to having a Black president or a female president. I think that power concedes to power, and no matter who has been put in place, I mean, case in point, we've seen all kinds of people get up there, even with Pete Buttigieg now. I don't think that he's going to particularly look out for LGBTQ people. I've never heard him like speak out specifically outside of saying like, or admitting that he's gay and, bringing his life partner around. And I don't, again, the idea, even as we discussed earlier about celebrities, us automatically assuming that they should look out for the underdog just because they're in a high position. Again, that's not what got them there in the first place. And that's similar to an LGBT person getting up there, or a Black person, or any minority. And I don't think that we should look for these identity politic type qualities or identifiers. Like, the conversation should be around who is qualified and who is actually going to fight for you, not, oh, they're gay, so they're going to look out for me, because clearly that doesn't happen.
Because that was the whole Obama play. The Obama play was he's Black, so therefore this is the savior for Black people. And now people are like, okay, after 8 years.
Exactly. And I think to that point, again, like even with Obama, he was supported by, Wall Street people, Citibank, and all of that stuff. So these people are curated because they want the general public to get excited, because like, hey, they're going to look at you and they're going to be excited and they're going to feel like we've arrived, but you're still going to follow the agenda that we put you in place to do. And I think that until we realize that that is what's been going on, they're just going to keep putting people up there, and people are going to get excited. And then 4 years later, they're going to realize that you're still in the same place that you were, because this person was just selected to give the imagery that you have arrived by way of somebody else succeeding.
Don't forget, what was this? Patrice O'Neill made the point that the reason why there was a point where the reason why black people supported Obama, because see, when to your point, Tone, when Obama came in, everybody thought it was going to be like sweeping changes, and he didn't. Realistically, he didn't really do shit, right, for what people thought he was going to do. So Patrice O'Neill is famous for saying all white people had to do to get black folks on board with hating Obama was shut the fuck up. Because when you started hating him, we couldn't hate him because we couldn't agree with you openly. So he was like, you know, a lot of black folks were like, you know, ready to get this guy out of here, or whatever have you. We need to stop pretending as though America is forward thinking in terms of supporting one group or another. Insofar as, like, it's not like the conditions had to be right for Obama to be elected, because when you really look at it, Obama, for as much as they talked about him being an outsider, the right talked about his middle name being Hussein, how he was not really born here, et cetera, et cetera. The left kept talking about how much of an American he really was because his mom was white, and et cetera, et cetera. So we had the right talking about how much he was different, and we had the left talking about how he could be accepted because he was part white, you know, low-key saying he was part good. So, see, it's not that bad, guys. He's part white, is how I read it. I remember thinking that when he was on, you know, on the trail. So here's the thing: are we going to see a female president? Sure. Are we going to see a gay female president or a gay male president? I don't think so. I don't think so, because the point that, you know, some other people brought up earlier, the Western world is forward thinking. The rest of the world may not show the same. What the good old boys are going to think is that the rest of the world will never respect a man who makes love to other men. For the same reason they think, as someone in the comments said, you guys are acting like homosexuality is normal. For the same reason we have dumb shit like that going around is the same reason why I don't see us having a gay male president. A female, you know, guys won't be so butthurt and personally offended by that. A guy, though, a guy who takes it in the ass as president, I don't know about that. I think a lot of guys are going to say he's not macho enough, he doesn't speak for them, et cetera, just because it's embarrassing to them personally. But hey, who doesn't like watching chicks make out after 2 beers at the bar? Fucking A.
You know what I always say, like, people are more accepting towards lesbians than gay. I think
because there's no penetration.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think openly gay, because I believe we've had gay presidents before, but you first openly gay. One, I mean, let's take Pete Buttigieg, for example. Let's say Pete Buttigieg wins, he goes all the way up and he gets a nomination and he wins presidency and stuff like that. He's a war veteran, you know. He's a white man in America. You know, he's a young guy. I think people. I don't think his sexuality will be an issue. I think there will be a lot of other things that'll be an issue. But yeah, I think America is definitely ready for a gay president, man or woman. I don't think. I mean, you know, if they come with the right credentials, like I said, look at the case with Pete Buttigieg, war hero, decorated war hero. But Pete Buttigieg also has issues relating with the black community. Pete Buttigieg also has an inexperience in the Senate. He was only a mayor. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, there'll be issues like that. But if we were to have a gay president, I don't think his sexuality would be as much of an issue as people think it would be.
So
you know? At least not at home.
So you played devil's advocate saying we weren't ready to have gay shit on TV, but you think we're ready to elect the leader of the free fucking world if he's gay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
No. That's impossible.
Okay.
Corey, that's
I'll
impossible.
rock with it.
Those two don't score.
Yeah, man. You're talking. Yeah, but anyway, You're talking about a popular opinion versus an election. I think
people vote by their opinions. How many people voted for? People literally voted for Trump a second time in greater numbers. When if you actually looked at it on paper,
people don't vote on policy. No one cares.
People don't vote on policy, bro. They vote with their fucking feelings. Come on, we know that.
Not everybody.
It's the same shit. Not everybody, no, brother, but most people. And you know what? We learned this shit in grade school and in high school when we had mock elections, and the popular kid always won, even though he was a fucking moron.
I don't think there'll be gay sex. I think gay sex will always be an issue on TV. I think gay people being romantic or being involved will always be an issue on TV, or not always, but for the foreseeable future. But a gay war hero and politician being elected president who's not out there, showing his business, is just doing his fucking job. I don't think his sexuality is going to be an issue.
They'll make it an issue, brother. They will make it an issue for the same reason. Here's the thing. People don't give a shit about war heroes anymore. Most people, I'm just being real about it.
John McCain was a war hero and went against the very first black president. Surely the war hero should have more in his arsenal. So the war hero thing, and my thing about it is, it's not about them even showing his business in public. Is once there's just knowledge that he's homosexual, people just in the back of their minds will sort of be like, because people vote with their emotions. We're not robots. As much as we want to be for our own, it's about the policy and what they're about. No, we are human beings, and human beings, there's always that bit of emotion that will always come into it. Guys, okay, I've got to run, man. But guys, thank you for joining in, man. Guys, thank you everyone for tuning in. Please subscribe, but hopefully we'll see you guys here next Tuesday, guys. Have a good one, man. Thank you for joining in, guys. Peace out. Peace out, guys.